Chair goes. Okay. And on my watch today. All right, we got 2 minutes. We're okay. Oh, I'm already down here. Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody. The date is July 30th and time is 6:01, and I call this meeting to order. We do have a quorum. We have Mr. Rodriguez, Mr. Hernandez, Mrs. Delgado, Mr. Martinez, and myself. Moving along on the agenda, we have the Pledge of Allegiance by myself and invocation by Mrs. Vallejo. Anybody like to take the invocation? Mr. Hernandez?
Sure.
You good? All righty. Everybody, please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Please bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we ask you for this upcoming school year, your guidance and your wisdom. We ask that you guide us as a board with the help of our superintendent, that we stay away from the pettiness and concentrate on the best that we can for not only the students, but the staff. We ask all this through your Son, Jesus Christ, in his name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Moving along on the agenda, we have open forum public comment. Mrs. Saenz, do we have anybody signed up? Alrighty. Next, we're moving on to the superintendent's report. A1, TASB Lone Star Governance Report. We do have Dr. Jacinto Ramos Jr., a Lone Star Governance representative, here to present for us, I think virtually. Dr. Ramos, are you there? Hi, Dr. Ramos. All right, how are you? Do you have the volume? Yes, it's on our end. Is that good for everybody? Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Maybe I'll just speak a little bit louder. That helps a little bit. Okay. Well, good evening. Saludos, everyone. My name's Dr. Jacinto Ramos Jr. Please call me Cinto. I actually live in Fort Worth, Texas, and was joining, I guess, to tell you a little bit about Lone Star Governance if you're looking for that, but I kind of wanted to see what questions you may have, what wonderings you may have, and then maybe I can tailor the information about what you're specifically maybe looking for to learn more about.
Sure. Question that I have is, what's the transition process from the way we currently run our meetings to moving over to Lone Star Governance? And number two, what's the success rate you've seen in student improvement as you've transitioned boards from the normal way of having a meeting to now the Lone Star Governance, where it is student and data driven?
Yeah, no, okay, that's super helpful. I think I'll start with the first one, the transition. I think the first part, right, that we do is we propose a 2-day training. You may have heard different conversations about that. I would say that the first part of the perspective that I'll add to the conversation, I was a board member in Fort Worth, Texas. I was the board president for 4 of my 9 years. And to be how it is, then ya está. Lo vamos a entrar con ganas. And so I'm, not proud at all of how I conducted myself during those years, the earlier years. And so when I say that, it's to be blunt and honest with you that I was also a youth minister, and that's probably where I got my biggest set of skills. As a youth minister, and I really appreciated you opening with a prayer. For me, it was very grounding to listen to you right now. We had a tagline in our ministry, and we said that I have to earn the right to be heard. I carry that with me as a governance coach, that I am not quick to give feedback to board members unless I have earned the right to be heard by you, which means that I work to earn the trust of the board members. And my experience initially with Lone Star Governance was I felt that I was being told what I couldn't do. And you can imagine that that didn't go over too well with me, especially when I had run a campaign and was being unapologetic about fighting for children. I just didn't know the best way to do that. And so as I embarked on the journey, and that's actually when I was thinking about going back to school, that's what my dissertation is focused on, is school board governance and student achievement. I dove into the literature to see what it was that I was missing. And better yet, what could I learn? And so I kind of began to merge my experiences in the streets and the juvenile justice system as a youth minister to say, how about if we flip the framing of it to tell board members what you can do? And so for me, I respond better in that manner. And so I'll tell you, for example, some of the basics that I tell board members all over the state and all over the country. Because I'm not only a Lone Star Governance coach, I'm also a National Council of Great Cities coach. And I don't say that to brag, I say that as a testimony. That the work that I was able to do and learn in was that the transition from going from the adult behaviors that I was accustomed to leaning into the literature, to learning and growing, is that I realized that what I could do is I was leaving my biggest superpower on the table, which was that I was not aware of my student achievement data. I went 4 years on the board not having a clue of what House Bill 3 goals were. I went 4 years on the board not having a clue of what our current literacy rates were, mathematics, CCMR. I could not tell you when I first did the training. And that's important because it's what jolted me into consciousness to become aware and awaken that this system that we are trying to oversee and trying to make sure that it's best serving our children was something I was completely naive to. And so my biggest superpower was not setting goals with my colleagues on the board, not monitoring the progress towards those goals. And what I love about Lone Star Governance is that in the framework, when I realize what I can do, is that I can collaborate with my colleagues, I can collaborate with the superintendent. And then I'm going to give you another one because it's not all roses, right? It's also being honest enough to say that I share a literature piece with all board members that I begin to coach and superintendents. I also believe in moving from a safe space to a brave space. We absolutely need safe spaces. But if I'm going to be real with you, I think board members need brave spaces. And that doesn't mean that we shy away from conflict. I think we shy away from unhealthy conflict. But I think we lean into the kind of conflict where I can push back on you on an idea that you have that I don't agree with. But that doesn't mean that I have to be brutally ugly to you or attack the person. There's a difference. And so those are the skills, right, that I learned in the streets to work with young people and my colleagues. That can I challenge your idea? Because I have a different perspective on that. The light hits you differently than the way it hits me from where I'm at. So my version of my reality of this is very different. But I'm not attacking you. I'm not saying that you're a bad person or a bad board member. I'm not telling you that I'm a better person than you. I'm just simply saying that the idea of how we think we get to better student outcomes may be different from mine. And I believe that that's where the magic happens for board members. That when you create that kind of a space, to have that kind of a dialogue over a maybe unhealthy debate, I have evidence that transitioning can be not painful, and that can be pretty exciting. So I'll just say you've got some neighbors. I am not coaching Donna, but I have watched Donna for a while. I am coaching Westico, and you could watch Westico 7 months ago. will notice a difference. And I'm a big proponent of using video for self-reflection. I was just in Fremont ISD last night. That board went from spending 0% of their time monitoring student achievement and monitoring their progress towards their goals, that last night we did our first board self-evaluation and it was a big celebration. They spent over 50% of their time monitoring student achievement. And here's what happens. When board members get accustomed to spending at least 50% of their time, which is what the research shows us, you have a higher probability of meeting those goals. You also find that most people who really genuinely care about children will minimize conflict because there's nothing to fight about all these other adult-centered focused topics. But that journey begins, like I said, with the 2-day training. It's settling into understanding how to move from a safe space to a brave space. It's establishing a common language and vocabulary. I call them the ABCs of governance: inputs, outputs, and outcomes. But connecting the dots for everyone in the room to understand why this language can be very transformational. Now, I think I want to take a pause there because I've kind of already, you can see my youth ministers coming out here, and I want to slow down, and I want to see what questions, thoughts, or wonderings you have about just that first question that you asked.
I do like the idea of the smooth transition process. We do know that we have had a healthy debate amongst our board over the last 2 years that I've at least been on it. We do, however, need to focus on our student achievement a lot more than I think we have been. And I think that was one of the things that prompted our wanting and our needing to move into something that is more student focused. And so we're all, from what I understand, willing and able to want to move through this process and be better at better advocates for our students, most importantly, and better advocates for our district and better board members for them, because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones up here making these decisions for us, whether it's the next generation and generation after that. And so I'm fully committed to making this to being a part of this process. And I don't know if we have any other comments or questions from any of the other board members.
I just want to say that I know that as the phrase goes, oftentimes, nothing good comes easy, and so we're prepared to dig in and do the hard work that needs to get done, so that ultimately our students are the ones benefiting from our efforts here sitting on this board.
Mr. Ramos, thank you for taking the time to listen and to consult us. I mean, we're common folks, but we have very diverse backgrounds. And we say, hey, there's always room for improvement, like I used to tell my students in math, and there's always room to sharpen the saw. So, thank you, sir.
More than welcome.
Were there any other questions from the board? Concerns?
What's our timeline?
Oh, what is our timeline, Dr. Ramos?
Yeah, so I just spoke to Santa Rosa on yesterday. They have done this work before, but they are looking to recalibrate. And so part of the thing is to identify 2 days that work for you. The reason I bring up Santa Rosa is that they've identified October 11th and 12th as dates that work for their schedules. We will be posting, and so if that happens to work for you all, that's a possible opportunity to get the 2-day training. And if you're not able to do that, then the key would be to identify the 2 days that would work best for all of you. And obviously with my schedule too, so, and I also say this, I'm not the only Lone Star governance coach. So if it's something where like my schedule isn't aligning with yours, be happy to coordinate with Monica Haloma at TEA to help you find someone. And then that's part of my transparency with you. I've got plenty of work in this realm. I love being in Region 1. I love feeling at home, different from Fort Worth from time to time. that would be the key, is to find 2 days that work for you. They do have to be back to back. If you were not able to do it like with Santa Rosa, so to speak, we would just simply have to post for 30 days before the training to give others opportunity to possibly join you. And if no one else joins you, just like with Santa Rosa, if no one else joins them, then we'll do it by ourselves. And it is done when it's posted, it allows us to do it in closed session. There will be some hard work embedded in here, and so I think it would be very gratifying for most people. So those are the next steps. And then once we do that, I would honestly say, you're gonna hear me reference this as a journey to say, look, there's nothing for me to tell you that we have to keep going past the 2 days. But if after the 2 days that you decide that you wanna continue the journey, we're gonna go, or we're gonna move as fast as you wanna move. Westico, again, you will notice that they chose to move pretty quickly. Santa Rosa has moved pretty quickly, as has Fremont. We're changing the narrative, no doubt, about what people's perceptions may be. And it's also pretty cool for me to see that it only doesn't take that long for people to say, hey, there's something different in that room. There's something different going on over there. But we call that parallel processing in Lone Star governance. As the board goes, so shall the rest of the district. So just a quick version, as a board conducts itself and is respectful and is collaborative, particularly even with your superintendent, you're modeling for the rest of your school system. So if the opposite were to happen, right? If you were disrespectful to one another or disrespectful to the superintendent, then we tell boards, don't be surprised if your superintendent turns around and models the same behavior with your administrators. Administrators turn around and they model the same behavior with campus leaders. Campus leaders turn around and model the same thing with teachers. Teachers turn around and model the same thing with students. And then don't be surprised if the students turn around and model the same thing in the community. It's called the I am the Genesis mindset that we would work in those students.
Dr. Ramos, I'm sorry, Mr. Ramos, thank you so much for being with us today. I really inspired and looking forward to this training, this governance. This is a win-win. Absolutely, it's a win-win for the board. It's a win-win for the superintendent, community, or staff. And you're right. It's we're looking forward to this. Thank you.
More than welcome.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Ramos? Hearing none, Dr. Ramos, we thank you for your time, sir, and we look forward to working with you. We will get together as a board and see if those days are in alignment with us, with our schedules, and we'll let you know as soon as possible. All right.
You all have a wonderful evening.
You
Thank
too,
you.
sir. Thank you.
you.
All right. Moving along the agenda, we have number 2, the ACE program by Marcos de los Santos, the Accelerated Learning Coordinator. Hi, Mr. Dos Santos.
Hello, good evening. Interim Superintendent, Ms. Venecia, Board President Garcia, trustees, and everyone in attendance. I'm gonna wait for the slide to. Okay. Okay. I was contacted by Ms. Venecia and told there was a couple topics and items that you wanted to discuss and also get more information on. So I prepared a slide. Okay. So I prepared a few slides that's going to give you basic information. Some of you already know how ACE operates, but just for the public that's watching, I'll go through it. And then as we go through each slide, I can go ahead and answer any questions. Okay. First off, I want to talk about the ACE Cycle 12 grant. It's a federal program. We're provided $10 million over 5 years, $2 million per year. And with this program, the funding is set up so that we can deliver additional interventions for students after school. And we used to do it before school, but that got changed and removed. We weren't allowed to do that anymore for previous cycles. So you may have heard that had changed, but we went ahead and we just do it after school. The way we were managing it in the first year, you might have heard that we were also doing Saturday camps. So we had surplus funding, so what we did was there was a need across the different campuses, elementary and secondary. So with that, we went a little bit above and beyond. The thing with grants is you cannot take away from, but you can add to. So even though it wasn't originally in the grant, we were able to go ahead and operate that in spring. And so that was taken advantage of from the K through 12 level. The purpose now. I know there's a lot of questions as far as what is the true purpose of ACE, and there's 4 major components, okay? One, it's a supplemental academic intervention. So supplemental meaning that it is additional to the regular day instruction. It is not the silver bullet, it's not the answer to everything, but like every single component, every department, and every person in the district, everybody is a part of that puzzle, and we are there too. And we bring in a valuable resource. Over $1 million goes straight back into our staff, provides them the opportunity to stay after school. This is contracted and non-contracted, so we do also hire instructional paraprofessionals. And so it is a very, very important program in that sense that we're able to offer that to our students, okay? It is a competitive grant, so there is only a limited amount of districts in the region that provide that. There is an enrichment component. All these are mandatory. The enrichment component is really important because of our economically disadvantaged students. A lot of people don't have resources or can pay for golf clubs or cheerleading outfits or dance outfits or a dance instructor and all these type of different activities, and we do that. At the secondary, we do CTE programs as well. We provide all that. You've seen the JFK marching band, you've seen the dance band, you've seen all those, that's ACE. ACE purchased all that equipment, paid for that staff. That's not coming out of the school campus. That has been built up over the entire years. And luckily, we tap into resources that are there at the campus, okay? Parental classes. Our parental involvement program over the years has been building itself up. Most districts have a parental department, and when I say department, they actually have a facility. They actually have a building, a parental building, or they have a parental office or somewhere that the parents can go, off campus, off site, district level. There was a couple things that we had opened up over time that we had partnered with other federal programs. We're planning to reopen those up. I already reached out to Ms. Venecia. We've been working that. As soon as I got back on board from summer, we started talking about those items. One is opening up the clothing closet, transitioning that and calling it Threads, for families by families. There's a location that we wanna go ahead and use ACE funds as a service learning program. We're gonna have the kids, we're gonna have the construction department at MHS. We'll have them and the kids go over there, and then they'll go ahead and maybe with some carpentry resources from our district, and we're gonna go ahead and build that out. So that way it'll be nice, and it'll be a location where parents and kids can feel comfortable to go over there and get necessities they need. There's a lot of students that we have that miss school because they don't have clothing, they don't have shoes. There's a lot of resources. So when that was shut down, I don't have the details on that situation, we looked at that and we said we're gonna bring it back, because that's one of the major components that we had. The same thing goes for our parental center. We called it EPIQ, and that was for parents where we gave them GED classes, we gave them ESL classes. We had presenters come in and give them free trainings on finances. We did a lot of trainings on academics as well too, on how they can participate and be knowledgeable enough to help their students in their academics. We had all the resources there for parents as well too. So we're gonna reopen that as well. We're working on that as well. And then the food pantry, of course. We've identified an area. I'm not gonna name it because the director's here. They don't know yet. But we're discussing certain areas that we can accommodate it, because you have trucks that move in and out of there. And it's a facility also that we were talking about different programs that want to participate. Then they want to provide a servant learning activity for them so that students can go in there and start learning certain skills, inventory, distribution, et cetera, and all supervised. We even talked to our special ed department. They actually reached out to me and said, hey, we know that this is going to happen, and we think that this is something that we can incorporate kids as well to the transition to and assist. So we're pretty excited about that as well. So that component is going to grow definitely from what you saw last year. College and career readiness. And those needs, those are things that are incorporated, and it's mandatory by the state program and the federal government. And we usually at elementary levels, we operate that with CTE classes at the minimum level for exposure, and we utilize a lot of counselors to work with our kids, because a lot of the population, myself included, I didn't have parents that went to college, they went to a university. I didn't have UT, Texas Tech, et cetera, all these different things and banners. We didn't have Saturday night, or Saturday afternoon games. So there's a disconnect there. So with this program here, we try to introduce kids to that as well, because they don't have it at the component. They keep hearing from their families, you need to graduate, you need to go to colegio, you need to go to college. But the fact is they can't connect to it because they have no exposure. So those are the type of activities we try to do through that. At the secondary levels, we try to partner up with Gear Up, campus trips, et cetera. That's all the things that we used to do in the past. And so we're going to try to incorporate that as well this year. So that's a breakdown in a nutshell on the 4 major components that we have to follow. Now our ACE campus staff. Our ACE campus staff is usually what we call site coordinators. So those individuals, usually it fluctuates. If you look at the grant requirements fluctuate district by district. Here in Mercedes ISD, we've always had a requirement that they at least have a bachelor's, 3 to 5 years of teaching experience, and a master's preferred. And usually throughout the years and all the different cycles that we've had, like I said, I've been here 17 years, and this program's been here as well with us. I said those are areas and categories where we've always had highly qualified staff, and that we incorporate them into the campus team. So the main goal is for them to follow through with the grant requirements. They have an extensive job description. That job description is from Texas, from TEA, but we have modified it so that to meet the qualifications and all the expectations so that they can onboard onto the campus and incorporate themselves at the campus level curriculum team, okay? And they can be another resource to your principals as well. Another set of eyes and ears to help monitor and then also, put into place interventions. And then possible grant extensions. This grant extension was different because it's a competitive grant. So you get 5 years, you get $10 million if you meet all the qualifications. This year, with this cycle, they said if you meet all the qualifications and you're in compliance, there's a possible automatic 3-year extension. So that's another great thing about this. So right now it's $10 million insured as long as we follow the grant, and then possibly another 3-year extension if we meet all the requirements. Is there any questions on slide 1 before I move on? No?
Would those extra 3 years come with the, I guess, the $2 million?
Yeah, the distribution of funds would still be the same, $2 million per year. But that's if you're in compliance at the end of the grant term, the original 5. And I can come back again too if you want to have more time to think of questions in case I missed something. So again, at a core, so what are we offering through ACE in this program here? It's extended instructional time during the day as well too, because our coordinators are there on site. So sometimes they'll do small pullouts and they'll do tutoring themselves with small pockets and small students and groups that need more of a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ratio. We also provide high dosage tutoring after school. Those we try to keep it between 8 to 15. We do make accommodations for secondary. Secondary at the high school, like I said, there's always challenges. We're one of the few districts that are actually serving high schools. Not everybody serves high schools. Some just focus on elementaries. But at Mercedes, we've always focused on that as well as the high school level. Of course, because you have a lot of competition. Sports, athletics, organizations, and other interests. Acceleration academies on Saturday, that's extra. That's not written into the grant. It's not something that we have to do. But with proper financial management, spending the money correctly, we usually have a surplus going to spring, and it's something I intentionally focus on because I know that sometimes the campus admin need additional resources and time to focus on certain areas. So we did roll that out on our first year, and we're hoping to do the same thing the second year. High quality summer learning opportunities. We do also provide an extensive summer learning program, and we run 6 weeks, okay, into July. We're the only program running into July here. Everybody ends at the end of June, but we run 2 weeks into July to meet the 6-week requirement. And there we offer a wide variety of things. Usually it's in most ACE programs, it's enrichment. You're seeing that drones and you're seeing all these competitions. We incorporate a a STEM competition that we do at all grade levels as well. But this year what we did is there was a need for credit recovery. So since COVID, the grant has changed a little bit. They really didn't want us to overlap with the responsibilities of the district, but one of it was closing the gaps. So we were allowed to provide those additional labs, and that's what you saw at high school. We had multiple labs running. They were using the Edgenuity software so that way they can recover credits that they were missing, and that way they wouldn't be held back and on time. And same thing happened for junior high as well too. We had multiple labs running. Elementary, the need at the elementary was not as large as you would say as in the secondary, but we still did have some, I think that program was taken care of by another federal program in a separate campus for summer school. Okay, and then I know that I was told by Ms. Vanessa that they wanted to know what is the focus and how do you target kids. Okay, so the instructional focus is simple. This is by the National Institute of Research. This is by the Department of Ed. They've been doing this since I've been working with this program. It's been over 17 years, and they visit after-school programs and during after-school programs, and what they do is look at best practices, and they create a structure that Texas has adopted, and they require us to follow. So there's the 3 main components, and this is how we start, especially now going into September. You have the need-driven category. The need-driven category is a category that will, how do you start in September? We have a September 4th start time, right? That's when we have to start, required by the grant. What we're looking at now is our incoming students. We're looking at the state assessment data from the previous year. We're looking at the needs and gaps. You know, of course, your 5th graders are going to junior high. Your 8th graders are going to high school. So what we gotta do is we gotta close the gaps there and prepare them because they're gonna have more rigorous content that they're gonna be introduced to. So that's usually the focus there. We'll work with the campus principals. The campus principals are fully involved in this scenario, okay? And so what we'll do is we'll identify students based on data sets. Our coordinators are there to recruit teachers that can fill in the services. And that's how that works. And then all those people at the campus level are combined and involved, okay? The curriculum-driven portion is something that happens after your first 6 weeks. That's the section that after you get your first 6 weeks data, we know that Mark came in from last year and he has these needs and has these issues. Now we finish the first 6 weeks, we see there's additional issues on top of that, okay? And so that when we start to do is start those interventions as well and try to spiral both into each other if we can. The universal is the HB 4545. As you all have heard many times, there's a mandate that if a child does, doesn't pass STAR, then they have to be provided tutoring, mandatory tutoring. We used to participate in this, but then it got too expensive. So we've kind of taken a step back. Campus has picked up the slack, and they're starting to do that through block tutorials that they do during the day. And that's where they address this issue. Because after school, it was just it was a very large need. And it was something that was draining the funds and taking away from resources from other areas. So that we passed on to the campus principals. But these are the three main categories that we follow. Okay? And then here, I'm going to talk about our participation levels because they wanted to know as far as how did ACE perform last year and what were some of the challenges, what are we gonna keep and what are we gonna modify going into next year. So I'm not gonna go through every campus, but I'm gonna give you a breakdown. I know you all were provided this packet, but here what you see is the students that were participating in fall compared to the enrollment. The enrollment numbers that we were getting was, we called the campuses and we asked their attendance clerk, what is the current enrollment? We entered that into TA's data system, and this is the report from that data system, okay? So they're tracking how many students, they track how many students come every single day, what categories that they're attending, math, reading, science, social studies, enrichment classes as well. All that is tracked on an online system, so it's completely desktop audited, you would say, okay? And we also have in-person audits. We had one that was Taylor Elementary, okay, that happened in late September, I believe, and they did an exceptional job. Alicia Tejerina and the principal there, Ms. Sarmiento, they went ahead and went with Ms. Chelly from TEA, and she was shocked at just how organized and structured they were. Like you're talking, and what I mean by that is as we were touring each hallway, she was taking them through K, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth hallways, and she told them exactly how many teachers were in that hallway, what they were doing, and what they were supposed to be teaching. And as we went through and toured it, they were exactly right on point. So we were selected to be a highlight campus. I had notified the assistant superintendent, the superintendent at the time, that we were told that they were gonna be visiting Taylor Elementary in January because of what they saw there, because they wanted to bring other districts. So we had a state district meeting there. That didn't transpire because of transportation issues and buses and whatnot, and it was held in Brownsville across from the university, so it was too far. But they did discuss what they saw that day. So they did good, and they provided us a report as well that I had provided to the superintendent on what they saw and what their findings were. So here what you see is participation levels, the number of core teachers by grade level. I added that as well too. You can see that at the bottom. And as we go through, I'm not going to go through unless you want me to, but you were provided this by campus. But what I wanted to talk about was the participation levels, because as we discussed, you can see there that I was asked, what was the main challenge that you had in the 23-24 school year? And the main challenge that we had was core teachers availability, okay? But I wanted to really take a little bit deeper dive, if I'm allowed to, into the data, because I really want to give a justification to the numbers that you see. You see 3 out of 4, you see 2 out of 4. In some cases, you see some, especially in secondary, 0 out of 6, 0 out of 9. But there's a story behind those numbers, because we did follow up, okay? And we did meet with these teachers, and we asked what is preventing, and what are the causes, what are the variables that are preventing us from having a full core content staff? Because we kept getting calls saying, why don't we have this tutoring? Why don't we have academics? Why is there academics? Okay? And the situation is we didn't have academic teachers to teach core. We had to supplement that with other staff. We had to supplement that even with our paras. They really stepped up, and they came in. Those that had the certifications, those that had the degrees, that we could put them there. And like I said, we tried to do everything possible to accommodate. But I did want to provide this information to you and discuss it, because I think that we are really limiting ourselves on the instructional capacity that we have and that we can utilize after school. We have policies in place that don't allow staff to participate. You have coaches that are on stipends, and you have people in fine arts as well too that are on stipend that can't work after school because of some policy where the stipend says that they can't work, even though that their duties start well before, well after tutoring will end. I said, you have coaches starting at 5:30, our instructional core tutoring runs from 4 to 5. And you have a small instructional staff population, but you have a high stipend population. So when you correlate those two together, right off the bat, you're limiting yourselves. And the people that are left, and when you go to them, they have personal responsibilities as well. Some of them, we went to go talk to them, especially in the core areas, face to face, saying, please, why aren't you available to stay? And, sir, and they would tell me, Mr. Los Santos, my husband works at night. I have to take care of the kids. I have to hold on the household. Or I have a loved one at home that needs to be taken care of. Or my kids are already in organized sports and there's nobody else to take them but me. There's a lot of different variables. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about to the board today was that reconsidering and allowing, it's not double dipping if they're starting their services well after the instructional period, that'll give us a higher instructional capacity. The second one was also administration. A lot of districts, everyone has different policies and procedures, but a lot of districts as well allow admin, after they're done with their normal regular day duties, to participate and offer tutoring as well if there's gaps. I think that if we were to do that as well too, that would solve a big issue and increase the instructional capacity. It's people that are on stipend and also administration, those that have that are considered administration contracts. Because it's not about the position in the title, it's mostly, our policy the way it is on administrative contracts. So if that could be something that could be discussed and possibly looked at, that would really, really help us going into 24, 25, okay? Now for accountability, and I'm gonna go into that area next. On the accountability section, what you see here is I've been here 17 years, and like I said, it's been many, different superintendents, different boards that I've dealt with, but there's always a high accountability, especially, after a certain year where there's a lot of questions, okay, and there's a lot of expectations for the upcoming year. So preparing that and knowing that we were gonna go into a 23-24 was gonna be a difficult year, I went ahead and I started implementing this, which I've done in the past, which is just a survey that I do with staff. It's a sign-in sheet, and we go to these staff at the beginning and end of every semester, and we ask them if they're available to work. This is actually one of the sheets. I just blacked out the names, but you can see the responses of and yes and whatever the case may be. And in some of the notes, they put there that they are core teachers, but that they were on stipend. So changing that and looking at that would really greatly help the program and really help our kids as well too, because we have more availability. It'd be more stable as well too as far as the schedules and the services they're receiving. And so this is something that we have just implemented last year again. It was our year one, and we're gonna implement it every single year because it also allows for accountability for principals, okay? Part of the instructional scores that we have today, and I'm gonna talk about the focus because I know I was asked what are we gonna focus on next year. I think we all saw the scores. We saw the rankings and we saw where our district placed. And one of the main things is accountability, okay? And so this is one of those features where teachers are evaluated, whether we are paid to instruct and we're paid to teach. That is the job of a teacher. Administration is there to manage and supplement and supervise and initiate. But the instruction and the core instruction happens with our instructional staff, okay? And that's something that also we need to move toward too, and that's why we had this here, because if you saw some of the areas where the scores came in, those are the core areas where we need additional assistance and we need them to stay, and we're paying them. And there's other districts out there that it's mandated because it is part of their contract that you can require them to stay so many days out of the year. We've never done that in Mercedes because we've always had ACE. So it gives them an opportunity to come in and help their class if their percentage level is struggling, and help the kids within their class as well too. It's a win-win for everybody. You're gonna come in, you're gonna have your class improve their performance, and you're also gonna get compensated as well. And so that's kind of something we want to push. And the same thing goes for accountability as well too. If we really want to move the needle, because I'm going to talk about some of these campuses as well, is that what is our goal? When you walk in, we don't have goals. And that's something that we really need. And what I mean by that is that we don't have a set standard. I can't walk into a third grade math, I can't go into a elementary and go up to a third grade math class and tell them, what is your mark this year? What is required by your community and your district? Okay, you were 38% last year. What do you got to hit now? Because that's what you're going to get evaluated on. A lot of districts have that. High-performing districts have that in place. And what they do is they give 2 to 3% increments. So they say you were 38 this year, you got to be 41 next year, and then you got to move the mark. And I said, and we don't have that. That's a real big major factor. I know that you just had a presentation on that program. There's various programs that work your way toward that. A lot of high-performing school districts, they have that in place. Because if I walk in and I tell, if we look at, we had a principals meeting, and I told the principals, you cannot walk in and tell any teacher that they did a bad job this year. You can't. Because that teacher's gonna turn around and say, well, what is a bad job? Because you never designated what a good one was. You never told me 45% was the mark. When you go into, for those that maybe don't have that exposure, when we meet every single year, and every district does the same thing too, your campus principal's gonna meet with their staff, and they're gonna talk about their scores. They're gonna say, this is the region, this is the state, and this is us. We need to improve. We need to do better, or whatever the case may be. But there is no set number that you have to hit. So, you see what I'm saying? You don't have a mark. And that's something that we need in order to improve and really drive forward and move the needle academically, is we need to have a mark. And so that is something I'd like also everyone to consider as well, because that would greatly empower your instructional staff and all levels as well too, as far as admin. And that's something that I learned as well too. I didn't know about that. Never crossed my mind at all. And then it made sense. What is acceptable and what is unacceptable? You know, because all we do as instructors and admin in those classes is we talk about the region and we talk about the state, and maybe we look at the campuses that are around us, but we never set the mark. And so that's really going to help us to drive in normal daytime instruction and, instructional time, bell to bell, and then also any type of interventions that you see, whether it's before school, after school, or Saturdays as well. And I just wanted to go over some of the modifications that we're going to do. So this is the timelines here. This is the breakdown when the bell rings. Once the bell rings this is the elementary slide. I did make some modifications there just to be a little bit more transparent. You have, and that's the only error I had there. 3 to 4 o'clock is usually the homework assistance period. That's the period the bell rings. Students then go to a designated area, which is usually the cafeteria at all of our elementaries, libraries, et cetera, at secondaries. And then they're given some type of food item, some type of snack, some type of substance. And then as well, we're giving them time to also work with instructors to get homework assistance out of the way. A lot of parents don't want kids to come home and they still have homework sitting there. If they've been sitting at the campus until 5:45, 6 o'clock, getting home about 6:30, almost 7, they don't want them getting there with homework, so we provide that period to help them. Once teachers come off contract for core interventions, their elementaries are off at 4 o'clock. So at that time, the teachers go pick up their students, they take them to the classroom, they deliver the instruction that's already pre-designed and that is intentional. And then at that time, after they finish an hour of instruction, they move into enrichment. We have an enrichment component, 1, because it's required, and 2, because it's effective for retention. Kids are not going to keep coming back if all they're going to be doing is tutoring. So that at that point, we offer them some type of enrichment. Of course, kids love sports. We're working with different programs, fine arts, and our sports programs. We've always worked with all our head coach as well, too, to build a cohort. Right now, we're going to focus on golf. Golf has a population that's dwindling, okay, and we started working with them this summer. We bought clubs for all the elementary campuses, we bought clubs for all the middle schools and the high schools, and then we contracted with the golf course, Llano Grande, that's part of Mercedes, and we were sending kids over there as well too. So that way they get experience, and then that way hopefully that we'll transition that all the way to our high school. So they'll have a cohort that is interested in experience and has the resources as well. And it saves our family and our community members a lot of money, because those clubs are not cheap, okay? And amongst other things. So positions. The positions and the funding selections. I know there's questions as far as, well, who selects staff and who does that? We work entirely with our principals. We're here with our principals as a resource and to supplement and to help them in any way possible, okay? Their success is our success. That's the mentality. So they're completely involved and in charge in the selection process and also the structure and what they need to target. And they're working with that site coordinator as well and bringing them to be part of the team. Program coordinator, compliance, program development, implementation, and monitoring on my piece. And then the site coordinators there as well too has the breakdown. And then we track everything online with the TA system. We have everything documented, every single thing that we spend, all the receipts, all the POs, all the reasoning why. We don't buy anything unless teachers need it. That's kind of the focus. We don't buy something that somebody at Central Law, nothing against them, right? But it's teacher focus. What do you need to be successful? What do you need that your principal can't buy you with the budget that they have? And that's where we come into place. Okay. Then we go into the payroll tracking. We do that as well too. We work directly with payroll, federal programs, and we track all that paper and that documentation, and we have that in place there in our office as well. Certified professionals, are, like I said, this is the change that we're gonna have. We're gonna bring in the curriculum leadership a little bit more so that we can look at who do we have staying after school. Do we have the best of the best, okay? And we're breaking away from teachers staying and only working with their kids to finding what the kids needs, grouping them, and then hiring the best teachers to service them as well too. Because every student is our student. It's not just my classroom, it's every student that walks into Mercedes ISD. That's the mentality we have to have. And so we're breaking away from only my students to everyone's students. Same thing for instructional paraprofessionals. Like I said, they're an outstanding workforce that you have. They're always there, whatever the case may be, whether they're providing enrichment activities. I mean, we've had staff that have done some amazing things and have amazing skills, and so they've always been there for us, and we incorporate them as well too in our after-school programs in different capacities. The only difference between the first slide and the second slide here in secondary is just the hours. For secondary, they have a late start time, 4:15 to 5:15 is the instructional time. They don't have a homework window. And then we have the enrichment from 5:15 to about 6, but usually they start moving to buses by 5:45. And like I said, that is the presentation. Is there any questions?
Mr. Los Santos, with
Yes, sir.
regards to the site coordinators, do they get involved with the teaching staff with regards to what is taught, or is that left up pretty much to the campus administration and the teachers, the core teachers that are teaching that?
Campus administration and the curriculum department as well set the resources and set the tone and the schedule as far as what's being taught during the regular day.
And if there's any-
After school, but they're also implemented now. The whole point is to implement them now in that regular day instruction and development at the campus level with their principal, and that carries on into after school, and they make sure that they initiate that as well too. So they are involved as far as what's being taught. They're gonna take a larger role as well too as we move into year one was kind of like a shock and awe moment for them, because some of them were coming straight out of the classroom. Some of them already had experience working at the campus administration level. So it was a transition period for them, but we're fast tracking them. And so what I did was I took the elementary core individuals that already have years of experience working at the campus administration level with curriculum and whatnot, and then I merged the two so that way they can work together as far as when to look at data, when to create data sets, how to create binders, when to get involved in PLCs and those type of things. So it's an ongoing process, but we're gonna get there.
Okay.
Yes,
And the students that come, obviously they take attendance and, so forth. What kind of percentage of the days that ACES offered, would you say a typical student that has been identified that needs
Right.
some support, how often do they come?
Well, it's going to fluctuate campus to campus. On elementaries, I would say you have the highest ADA as far as someone that's repetitive coming, and then also they have a different process. They designed their program to cycle students in and out. So it's not we're going to get these students in. We're trying to hit 60 days throughout the whole entire year, but they're going to target certain needs and necessities during groupings, and then we try to then move them out. Once we see that they use different assessments to monitor and to make sure that there was improvement, and they'll cycle them out into maybe enrichment just to keep them there and just keep track and to not send them home because parents already are on schedule. So out of the 60 days, if they're coming in the fall, it just depends. I mean, usually I would say on average, you're probably going to split it half and half between fall and spring, depending on how they're cycling them in and out. Secondary is the biggest challenge.
Right.
Secondary, especially at junior high and high school, is where we really have to work hard. It is one of the options at first that I've been doing this for a long time, and it is a struggle to get them to participate, but we've always had a really good population of students regardless, and their parents. And so we decided to move forward with secondary, and those are, I would say, this year we didn't hit the mark. Okay, so I'm going to tell you now, none of the secondary campus did hit the 60-day mark. And so what I had to do was action plans with TEA. And so at that position, we talked about different action plans. And also, in the defense of that situation there was a lot of changes and things going on there at that secondary component, and also with the staff. The secondary levels, like I said, it's a 9th through 12th grade component, and there's a lot to know. I mean, you really, really have to be able to go to teachers, talk data sets, to talk data with them and convince them that this is the situation and the level and the status of where they're at, and have them work after school. You really have to be a content expert. And you're talking about multiple content experts, multiple contents that you're dealing with through 9 through 12, and even in junior high. So we're getting there, and we're working on that and working with them. And also with accountability as well too. Like I said, there's gonna be a higher level of accountability and pressure Of course, we've seen the scores. I mean, it's evident that we're gonna hit the ground running. And so the pressure's gonna be there, the funding's there, the slots are gonna be available. And so we're gonna really, really move fast between 6th through 12th grade.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from the board?
No? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you for your
Los
time.
Santos.
you,
Appreciate
sir.
you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the 24-25 curriculum overview by the Office of Teaching and Learning. Mrs. Gracia, Mrs. La Fuente, and Ms. Cristobal.
Good evening, Board President, Board members, Ms. Venecia, MISD staff, and community. So this evening, we're just going to do a quick review of some of the changes or some of the things that we're going to continue to work with our teachers and our campus leaders. So for pre-K 3 and 4, for them, last year, we had a lot of curriculum training for them. So really this year, all we're doing is bringing in new teachers that are being hired. We also are reviewing our end-of-year circle data. We did see growth from beginning of the year to end of the year with our math and our reading scores for pre-K 3 and 4. But there are campus needs that still need to be addressed. And so what we do is we'll train also not only the teachers, but we also train the paras to support our kids at those grade levels. And they set campus goals by the different components of that test. So for reading, this year will be year 1 of Amplify reading curriculum. That is an HQIM that is being pushed by TEA for all of us to do. Our academic coaches and deans will be the ones supporting the teachers during our reading PLCs. Last year we had our principals help us with the math, so they will continue to support math. Teachers are going to be planning collaboratively through the daily PLC meetings for unit and lesson internalization. We're going to prepare materials, share resources, create exemplars, and discuss strategies to address the student needs. And we've already started working on that with our teachers. We're going to continue the collaboration with Ed Direction. We've been working with them at the elementary level for 2 years. They have trained us as well with the TEA RSSP walkthrough that we've used. We're going to continue to use that. And then we're also, for secondary, we are going to train the staff with the research-based instructional strategies. We've done it at elementary, but now we're going to continue it on to secondary. We have already started, early June, we did an overview for our K-5 teachers with the Amplify curriculum. And then also our 6th through 8th grade teachers from each campus have already started to come into plan, and they're having an Amplify lead per campus and grade level. Next week, actually Monday through Thursday, we will be bringing in the K-5 teachers again. And now that they've already had an overview of the curriculum, now what we're going to do is we're going to actually sit and plan the year, look at the scope and sequence, how are we going to be assessing our phonics levels, reviewing also, one of the things that we included is we met with the principals at the end of the year, and we looked at our master schedule. So one of the things we're doing is adding a STAR prep, because also, and I'm kind of going off track, but I'm talking about math now, but with the math, we saw that because it was a new curriculum, we didn't see as much STAR prep in the curriculum. So in seeing that at the end of the year for math, we're working ahead of that to do that for reading, to where we're bringing in the teachers. This is what we taught this week for reading. How is this seen for the upper grades, 3rd through 5th in STAR? So we're pre-planning that. We're also going to give the teachers basically just more time to familiarize themselves with the curriculum. What exactly is it? Because it was 2 days of training, but it's a lot. It's new. Okay.
Just to kind of touch on Amplify for 6th through 8th grade, we are on week 3 that I've been working with the 6th through 8th grade teachers, dividing up each grade level so that we understand each unit and how we need to roll it out. So there will be Amplify lead at each of the campuses. For math, we're going on year 2 of Eureka. So we are, like Ms. Gracia said, we are going to continue with Ed Direction, so they'll get help, support on that. We're going on year 1 in Carnegie, so we've had 3 weeks of planning. We're going on week 4, and that's 6 through high school courses. We have been looking at the units, we have been creating exemplar lessons, and we have been embedding every 3 weeks assessment, so 3-week assessment, so you'll have data sets on that. Principals will be leading the Eureka Math PLCs. At the high school, the deans will be leading the PLCs along with assistant principals and principals, so everybody is accountable for knowing exactly what curriculum needs to be focused on. We do have a total of 20 leadership walks that are going to be supported by Carnegie. We have a total of 16 flexible supports, so that's identified supports that we need for each teacher that they can come in on, and a total of 31 on-site campus visits that Carnegie is going to be supporting us on. Along with that, Ms. Gracia and I have scheduled after-hour meetings every Thursday with Carnegie in order to make sure that we hit each one of our goals that we set with the principals. So we did have a total of 8 teachers, 2 district admin, and 2 campus admin that attended the Long Live Math T&I Institute in June. We focused on nothing but strategies for differentiation and how to roll out Carnegie. And we did have 1 teacher from the high school that was appointed to attend an institute in Florida to represent us there. For the TLI, this year we're going with materials internalization and alignment. So what the elementary got last year as far as looking at each of the units for Eureka Math, now the secondary is going to be doing it for Carnegie. And this is going to be 6th through 8th grade.
And I can also add for reading, we are going to be continuing to work with TIL through Region 1, but now they're going to support our principals and coaches for amplified reading. So basically what we already did with Eureka, now we're going to continue with reading. Okay, for science, we just adopted a brand new curriculum. You all approved those 2 for K-5 and 6 through 8. It was McGraw-Hill for K-5, and then for 6 through high school was Savas. We also trained our teachers in June on the new science TEKs that are going to be implemented this school year. We will also be monitoring through walkthroughs the requirement of the labs. And this is based on what the TEKs, the requirement that TEKs says that we should be doing by grade level. We did have the training already on the new TEKs, and this was for K through 5th and secondary. And then last Thursday, we had our new McGraw-Hill for K-5 training. And then for the secondary, that will be coming up in September.
So for the Effective Schools Framework, we did start in September with the secondary campuses, and then in February, we picked up the 4 elementaries and Mecca. So we were able to identify exactly where the CIPs should be geared for each of those campuses. I believe that they chose data disaggregation and curriculum reviews. So those are the 2 components, and I believe that's at every one of the campuses that we are going to focus on.
So for the plan of action for elementary, oops. Sorry. Okay, so the plan of action for elementary, like I said earlier, the principals and I met in June. We added another additional STAR Telpus period to our master schedule to include online practice. We actually met yesterday and continued today to be very specific about how many days they will be doing the different programs. So we're being more intentional with that. We will be having IXL from pre-K through 12 for all 4 content areas. And this is an online program that is tied to our MAP scores. So our kids will be still testing MAP beginning of the year, middle of the year, and end of the year. And what it does, the IXL program, is it sets the kids based on their needs. It sets them on an individualized path, okay, to help close the gaps. We will be setting teacher goals at the beginning of the year and utilize the individual student trackers, classroom data walls, and star performance data walls. We will be switching to DMAC as a platform to analyze our reading and math assessment data. And then we will be assigning the intervention through the 6 weeks meetings with a principal, academic coach, and the ACE coordinator. And then Ms. Guerra and myself will be monitoring that and their plan. We're going to continue to work with Region 1 through the TEACS resource system, communities of planning and practice, by sending teachers, coaches, and deans to that training on a 6 weeks basis. Tomorrow we will also have, through our Leadership Academy, a T-test calibration and coaching training for principals, assistant principals, and directors, where we will be reviewing, actually we're training the principals on the alternate domain 1, which includes lesson internalization, because we are using Eureka and Amplify and Carnegie. So that's a change for us. And then we revised the timeline, and it will be monitored by myself and Ms. De La Fuente.
So for the 6th through 12th action plan, I've already met with one of the deans, and we do have a meeting coming up to meet with the other deans at the secondary campuses. So we did develop a teacher tracker. We are going to start with a 90-60-30 goal, and then based on the analysis of each of the classrooms, we're going to have the teachers set a more realistic goal for them to meet. We are going to track that every 3 weeks through the quizzes and the CBAs. We are going to be planning during the PLCs. The only difference between secondary and elementary right now is we already have a watch list for each campus that was shared with the board last month. So each of the campuses has a list of students that are already in danger, whether it be EOC, whether it's attendance or behavior or just grades in general. So they are already grouping those. We're going to continue that through the rest of the week. And the ACE coordinators will be able to start with a clear group of students to target right at the beginning of the year.
Good evening. For our special education and bilingual departments, I will be presenting our plans of action. For special education, we are planning to set teacher goals with teacher tracker during the month of August and September. We'll be doing data analysis, as SPED teachers will also receive training on DMAC, support analysis of STAR EOC data to identify trends and areas of need of improvement. We'll also be running historical analysis of identified trends. The data analysis results need to lead us to target what and how we are delivering support in the inclusion classroom, as our inclusion teachers go and provide services to our students in the classroom. TA requirement now is for our students' IEPs to have baseline based on data and build up from that data. We want to see how our students are growing throughout the school year. Knowing how to read our data, our teachers are 6 weeks exams, 3-week monitoring, weekly tests using multiple sources of data of what the student can do. And we will also be revisiting accommodations every 3 weeks for those struggling students, so we can be proactive before the student fails, not waiting till the end. We will visit all areas once we meet with our teachers in attendance, the EB support that is being provided, and behavior. We will also be doing collaborative planning with special ed teachers collaborating with our regular ed teachers during PLCs to where they can help with planning lessons, sharing the resources, and discussing strategies to address the student needs. That will also target the accommodations that are allowed for our students. The special ed diagnosticians on campus, there will be tier 3 support, and they will be able to provide guidance on RTI, students that are being referred for response to intervention. They will be able to answer questions on what a tier 3 accommodation strategy may look like, which helps teachers improve their classroom setting to provide small group and one-to-one instruction. The LSSPs, they can provide assistance for students in lower grades struggling lower due to behavior, so that after an observation can make a campus recommendation to the assistant principal or principal. Students with more than 3 referrals would be red flagged. Are students getting what they need? They would provide assistance and recommendations. Intervention programs, using data analysis, teachers will create intervention groups to be targeted during ACE and in-class support. They would assign interventions through RTI, MTSS, 6 weeks meetings with principal, deans, and ACE coordinator to be monitored by our Mrs. Guerra, our 504 RTI dyslexia coordinator, and our curriculum directors. Student motivation will also be looking into discussing strategies for increasing student motivation and engagement, to include student goal-setting activities, reward systems, and ways to make learning more relevant to students' lives. Our bilingual department, our plan of action is to collaborate and plan with curriculum directors, as we have been doing, on instructional programs, data, and support needed in all areas of curriculum. Provide support to campus leaders and teachers to ensure meaningful collaboration and planning to impact emerging bilingual students' achievement. And this is by conducting instructional walkthroughs for ongoing learning, collaboration, and to determine the level of instructional support that our department needs to provide to our teachers, by modeling co-teaching, coaching, and planning with the teachers. We will also be analyzing our TELPAS data to identify areas of need to be targeted through instructional activities. We will provide professional development to bilingual ESL teachers who serve emerging bilingual students in our bilingual ESL programs, such as sheltered instruction, content-based language instruction, the ELPS, which is our English language proficiency standards, and Summit K-12 TELPAS online support program that we provide. Provide supplemental resources to all bilingual ESL teachers who serve emerging bilingual students for an equitable education. Provide support and monitor the implementation of supplemental programs and resources in all areas of curriculum. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
On the elementary, you mentioned, Ms. Gracia, that the elementaries will have a period, a STAR, TELPAS period. How long is that period?
It's 30 to 45 minutes. With the lower grades, we have a little bit more time. With the upper grades, it's a little less.
And every
So 30.
elementary will have the same?
Yes,
the time?
yes. And what we did actually today, we were trying to be very intentional and upfront with the teachers to give them the plan. We meet with them next week. So what we're doing is we're breaking it down. On this day, we're going to do IXL math. On this day, we will do STAR, TELPAS reviews. So that way it's already set from the beginning.
The PLCs, as you know, the
Mhm.
planning and the discussions being held, who's monitoring that at the campus?
So last year, because we joined the ESF at the spring semester, at the start of the spring semester, myself and the principals went through the training with them. Region 1 came in. I was also part of going in to monitor the PLCs for Eureka, for math. This year we'll continue, like I said, to work with Region 1 and the Mia Till, and we're going to continue the same thing with reading. So I will be the one that will go into the PLCs.
The 20 Carnegie walks, is that,
That's part of Carnegie, so with reading, we're working with Ed Direction, and for math, we're gonna be working with Carnegie. And Carnegie's also bringing in Ed Direction as well as doing the same thing for reading. And that's part of the LASSO grant that we received. So the Carnegie ones, those will be specific to math.
and what happens there in those Carnegie walks?
So last year, we did some through the Strong Foundations, and what we did is we went into the 4 elementary campuses, into the Eureka classrooms, teachers that were teaching Eureka. We did walkthroughs using the TEA walkthrough monitoring tool that is on Eduphoria, so we all use it. And then what we did was based on what we saw and when the consultant that came in from Eureka, we got together afterwards and we basically just talked, had a little session, and we said, okay, these are the needs that we've seen through the 4 campuses. We identified the ones that we saw at each of the campuses. And then what we did is, that's the on-site support. So based on the needs that we saw in the classroom, then we said, okay, we need to train our teachers with this or with this. And then we came back to monitor that. So basically, it's the same thing. That support will continue.
Just a change on the PLC for secondary, we've already mapped out the first 6 weeks. So it has on there when we're going to do the data talks, when we're gonna do the high, medium, and low to compare them to the exemplars that we do have, and then who's in charge of running each of those PLCs. So we did put the principal, the assistant principal, the dean, and then the department leader as well.
Any other questions, Coach? No? Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to the presentation of the 24-25 compensation plan by our Human Resources Director, Erica Flores.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Board President, Mr. Garcia, Acting Superintendent, Mrs. Venecia, trustees, and members of the community. Okay, so tonight I'll be presenting our full or whole compensation plan. Administration proposes the compensation plan for the 24-25 school year. Each of you have received a packet. In your packet, you will find a copy of the PowerPoint slide that's on the screen. You will also find a complete compensation plan booklet, which includes our pay schedules, stipends, and incentives, and our compensation plan guidelines. In your package, you also have a copy of the proposed model, which is one of the components I'll be covering, a list of stipends, and also the policy, the compensation plan policy. So I will be presenting and going through individual slides to cover the 3 components of the compensation that administration will be proposing tonight. All that will fall within the planned budget for 24-25. Those 3 components include our teacher pay schedules, covering teacher increases or step increases. The next component will be our proposed compensation model, and the 3rd component will be the proposed stipends. So on this next slide, I just sorry, that was a previous slide. On this next slide, I do want to cover administration. Administration is proposing that we keep the same teacher pay scale from the previous year for the 24-25 school year. And within that teacher salary schedule, I just want to highlight that our starting salary is $51,800. We are well above the state minimum salary schedule. Also, I do want to highlight that, okay, I need to step back. I'm sorry, I jumped a little bit. So I do want to highlight some notes on the compensation plan. There were some edits for some of the pay grades. Those changes were made to ensure that we are providing equitable pay according to the pay grade and the job requirements. Some of those were in pay grades 101, 102, 103, 105, 106, 107, 108. And then there was some deletions that were made in 303, 304, and 305 for some assignments that no longer existed. Now, I want to go ahead and touch on the teacher scale. So administration is proposing that we keep the same pay schedule from the previous years for our teachers, and that we also move on to implementing a step increase. On this next slide, administration is proposing the compensation model number 2, which was previously discussed. Model number 2 does take into account 0 increase for staff, all staff, with the exception of the step increase for teachers, librarians, and our nurses. Also, it takes into account a $1,000 retention incentive for all staff. Administration proposes or recommends that if the $1,000 retention incentive for all staff is approved, that we distribute that in 2 payouts, at the end of semester 1 and the end of semester 2. Also, that we provide that $1,000 incentive to staff members that are hired before September 1st. That takes into our account all our full-time employees from the previous year that are still with us this year.
Ms. Venetiano, I'm going to have a quick question with your staff real quick. Ma'am, I have a quick question about, you mentioned that we're going to do basically installments if the board wishes to approve the compensation. I don't know if it's possible. I know we've done it in the past, but it's, you know, if we can consider the staff, like maybe the first installment can be in December, before the Christmas, before New Year's, because past year, you know, it was kind of like, why didn't we think before this? How can I say it? Well, in other words, let's be proactive, I think, and just have the installment in December, if that's okay.
I think that's a great idea. It also motivates our employees that they'll be receiving this incentive prior to the break that we get. So it is important that we provide that payout before. So thank you for that suggestion.
No, thank you, ma'am. Yes, yes.
On the following slide, I do want to cover our stipends. Administration is proposing that we move on with that we continue with the already implemented stipends from the previous year. In 2023-2024, we did a lot, or did pay out 1.2 million towards the end of the year. That was a total of stipend amounts that were paid out. For the coming year, 24-25, right now we do have our directors and principals reviewing and approving individual stipends. We are currently looking at 1.2 million, but the budget that CFO is planning, she is budgeting for 1.4 million, because we do have to allow ourselves a little bit of cushion, because even though there were some stipends that might have not been given out this year, they're still going to be part of the compensation plan, and if those positions get filled, we need to have that money available in case we have to move up to 1.4 million. So when you see the variance there, it's because some of the employees also from the previous year, we were at 1.292. Right now we're at 1.244. We might have had employees that left, and so when they exited, we stopped payment on that stipend. But for the new year, we're still going to have someone who will take over those roles and will be eligible for those stipends. So it's important that we budget a little bit more. Any questions? Okay.
Were there any positions added to the compensation plan?
Yes, sir. Give me a second. I can open up my notes and I can identify those areas for you. Starting with pay grade 105, we did add our safety and risk management director. Although we did add that position, it is not increasing the salary. Salary was already there under a previous assignment title. So our budget remains the same. It's just the assignment is new. So now it exists under pay grade 105.
Ms. Flores, we also added the occupational therapist
Correct?
to the pay grade 104.
Yes, that is correct. And that position is at a 197 days as well.
And we also made the corrections based on the compensation plan that was approved last
Previous school
June,
year.
the previous, to 108. So you can see some of the areas were not listed in June. So we did put them in there, which were the Director of Elementary Ed and Secondary Ed. And then we also had the Director of Human Resources and Student Services as well there. And what we left the Assistant Superintendent for CNI on 109 for future purposes.
Could I add a comment, colleagues, Ms. Venecia? I want to bring that up, and I'd like to commend you, ma'am, for bringing up the recommendation for the risk management position. And I want to be on the record saying, I think it's a good move, it's a right move, it's a smart move, because, let me say something, sometimes you have to invest, because the also responsibility of that insurance, it's really gone out of hand, especially with the bureaucracy that you have to do. So I really appreciate you can have someone who's going to be an expert, that's going to look out for the best interest of the school district. Because in the past, I'll be honest with you, and I'll be honest with the taxpayers, they took us to the cleaners. And I hope, my feeble words will probably fade away, but I hope the board continues that path, doing the right thing, and looking out for the best interest for the staff. So thank you, Ms. Venezia.
I think repurposing that position was also value added because of all the mandates and compliance that
Absolutely.
we are held accountable for. So it's very important that we have someone that overlooks those mandates to ensure that the district is not just being compliant, but doing what is necessary to protect our students.
Also, one other move that we did make was the accelerated learning coordinator. We moved that position was at 102. We moved it to 103.
Thank you.
What was the title again?
The accelerated learning coordinator, which is Mr. De Los Santos.
Okay.
Those were the major moves. The other edits that were made, for example, in 105, we had some coordinators positions that are no longer in use. So those were eliminated from the pay schedule.
Any others, Ms. Flores?
No, I think you covered all of them. I mean, most of the other ones were just eliminations of positions that no longer exist.
Yes, that's correct.
We've already talked about the top two. Are there any questions from the board?
Not at all.
Mr. Martinez?
Okay, so if no questions, just want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak in front of you. And I wish you all a great school year. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Flores.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have number 5, the 24-25 budget update by Sylvia Garza, the CFO.
Meeting Board, Ms. Venecia. I have asked Mr. Robert Trailer to be here today to discuss the INS tax rate and also our debt service and how it affects our INS rate. So he'll have a short presentation, and I think he has a handout as well.
You want me to do that side, not this?
Good evening, thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dusty Trailer with RBC Capital Markets. We have the honor and privilege of representing Mercedes ISD as your financial advisor. As Ms. Garza indicated, my presentation this evening is going to just quickly discuss the district's bonded indebtedness and the INS tax rate. And so I have a very short presentation to discuss a little bit of that with you this evening. If you will turn with me to page number 3 of the handout that I have here. And what we've got on page number 3 is a graph and a chart that discusses the district's outstanding unlimited tax bonds. These are the bonds of the district that are paid for from the INS tax rate, INS portion of the tax rate. The district currently has 5 different series of bonds outstanding. Currently a total of about $39.4 million. It's actually down from the total of these 5 series. If we were to just sum up these 5 series in total, at one point there was $69.5 million. So you guys have paid down a significant amount of the principal amount of that debt over time, which is very good. If you'll look with me down at the bottom part of the page, we provide a graphical depiction of the district's annual debt service requirements on those bonds. And so what you'll see is that in the current fiscal year, the fiscal year we're getting ready to wrap up, we have annual debt service payments of about $4.5 million. But beginning in the upcoming fiscal year, that debt payment will drop by about $1 million to $3.5 million. And then you can actually see that it drops a little bit more in the coming years. So it's a pretty enviable place for the district to be in. Then if you'll turn with me real quickly over to page number 4. Page number 4, we just show a summary of the district's outstanding maintenance tax obligations. These are bonds and debt obligations of the district that are paid for within the M&O portion of your budget. And of those, you have about $5.77 million of principal amount left outstanding. And you can see that the debt service payments on those, if you look at the graphs down below, the debt service payments on those are about $1.375 million annually. Those run out to year 2029, but you'll see we actually step down a little bit each year. Go down to about $850,000 in 29, and then all of those obligations are paid off. I just mentioned that to you is that, these particular obligations, particularly when you're talking about budget and M&O budget, these particular obligations on this page are the ones that really hit you the hardest, right? Because you're paying these from the same bucket of funds that you're paying teacher salaries, light bill, et cetera, et cetera. So it is good that those are going to come down over time, and hopefully the district will get those paid off in the next 4 or 5 years. Turning back to page number 3, the $4.5 million debt payment that you have this year, you'll recall that you have an INS tax rate currently at a 34-cent level. The portion of the tax rate that's dedicated for repayment of debt is 34 cents this year. With that debt service falling like that, you have an option. One of the options that you have before you is to leave the INS tax rate at the current 34-cent level. And by doing that, you could then pay off a little bit of additional principal next year. If you leave it at the 34 cents, it'd be like having the ability, if any one of us had a little bit of extra money at the end of the year, it'd be like if any of us were to pay a little bit extra on our home mortgage, just paying off that principal a little bit faster. So that's one of the options that you have before you there on the INS portion of your budget, is to make a little bit of additional principal payment next year, keeping your tax rate at the 34 cents. That can be helpful to the citizens of the district because we're paying off interest early. We're avoiding some interest expense. The other thing is if we were ever going to go out for another bond, it would help us to keep that rate at the 34 cent as opposed to having to drop it and then come back and raise it right back up even more. So that is an option that you have before you. And if that's something you guys want to pursue, we can work with district administration and staff, have your bond counsel prepare a redemption resolution for you to adopt at the same night that you adopt your tax rate that authorizes you to defease outstanding bonds. Now, another thing that we've got in here in this presentation as it relates to the INS portion of the budget, some of your bonds actually have a call feature on them, meaning you can refinance them. The Series 2014A bonds become callable here next month, and there is an opportunity to refinance just under $5.4 million of those. That's found on page number 5. By refinancing those particular bonds under current market conditions, the district could save interest of approximately $722,000 over the life of the issue. That's not all up front, that's over the remaining life of the bonds. That works out to about $40,000 in interest savings per year if we were to consider refinancing those particular bonds. And we can do this in conjunction. You could do your refinancing and redemption resolution or whatever all together. You don't have to do one or the other. You could do both. So I think from the bond portfolio standpoint, particularly the piece that's paid for from the INS tax, you're in a really good spot and have some flexibility here that I think is puts you in an advantageous position. Y'all have any questions for me?
I have a quick question. What's the going rate right now on those bonds, the interest, just
So-
ballpark figure?
So you're talking about the.
If we're gonna, go ahead, yeah.
So the bonds that are outstanding to look at refinancing, they have an
Yes.
interest rate of about 4.81%. If we were to refinance those right now, we think we'd end up at an interest rate of a total interest rate, factoring in issuance costs and things like that, of about 3.75. So we think we could peel off a little over 1% off of the interest rate. Interest rates have, we're all still hearing from the Fed, waiting on the Fed to come in and lower interest rates. But the Fed does that on the very short end of the yield curve. The bond market has largely reacted to the anticipation that the Fed will lower some rates. So actual bond rates have come down in the marketplace here in the past 8 to 12 weeks. So there's an opportunity for this.
More or less what the cost be to refinance, more or less.
Yes, sir. Number one, the cost of issuance is embedded in the estimates of these savings. So we're not talking about having $722,000 and then the cost of issuance being pulled away from that. The cost of issuance is embedded in that. I believe we estimated in this probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about $135,000. All in. That's not just ours. That would be bond counsel, rating agencies, underwriters, Texas AG. There's all kinds of folks involved, but that's all.
Can it be fewer? Is there a penalty for pulling the money out?
Thank you for asking that. Since these bonds are currently callable, there is no penalty for that. You have the right, the district has the right to call these bonds away from their holders beginning in August with no penalty.
And how long is the window from August to?
The window stays open. The window opens August 15th, and then the district has the right to refinance these bonds from now until they pay off at no penalty.
So, Mr. Garcia, we just need board action on,
Well, this is a presentation.
I think it's just.
We probably have to put it on the agenda for the next board meeting.
And that's how you arrived at the 72K savings a year?
And I think,
Say that again.
Is that how you arrived at 72? Oh, no, it was 40,000.
40,000 per year? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We took into account there is no penalty to pull these away from the current bondholders. That's right.
I would imagine that would require board approval, which I think the next board meeting is April 20th. So that would allow that August 15th deadline to pass, and then we'd be able to pull them away.
We're okay, Mr. Saldana?
Yes, sir, as long as you post correctly, you'll be able to do that at the next board meeting.
And so once you guys, at that next board meeting, once you guys take, if you want to do that, you take an action to do that, then we get started to move forward on it, okay?
We'll consult with bond counsel.
Yes, sir, I agree.
And our CFO. Gotta be able to pay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all. Great to see
Thank you.
everybody.
I like happy meetings.
Your dreams were your ticket out.
That was the cue. Yes, that was the cue.
Welcome back.
Okay, getting back into our budget presentation. This is where we currently are with our 23-24 budget. And this is just looking at revenues, expenditures, and our deficiency at the very moment that we prepared this slide. This is as of July 22nd. So we currently have revenues of 47.3 million, expenditures of 49.5 million, and we currently had a deficiency on July 22nd of 2.1 million. We have our resources and other uses, and we have a total deficiency of a 2.126 to 18. I went ahead and included the unaudited fund balance just to give you a overview of that. Right now, with this, revenues, not all our revenues are in. Our state revenues for July are not in at this moment. What is very up to date are the total expenditures. So our revenues are a month behind. We just received our July on the 25th, so we are getting ready to post that and I believe it's about 3.5 million. And so that is going to offset some of the overage that we had there. But again, in August, we do not receive state funding, so we are at our mercy for August. And we will have some revenues come in though from our local tax collections, and we will also have some revenues from our federal drawdowns as well.
How about the insurance? Is that on the way too?
We received one of the payments, I believe 100,000, and we're getting ready to post that into our health insurance plan, and we're going to put it right back into.
How much more are we expecting?
The second one, I'm not certain. I don't know if Mr. Alonso has anything.
We've actually expected before the end of the subdivision.
Okay, we should be expecting one more. Our next slide, this will be our proposed 2024-2025 budget and tax rate. This is the proposed tax rate. This was our 23-24 was 0.75 for our M&O and 0.34 for our INS. We are proposing for our 24-25 tax rate 0.7869 for our M&O and 0.34 for our INS. The M&O rate does contain the 3 cents for the disaster pennies, so that went ahead and increased it to 0.7869 for a total tax rate of 1.1269. So we are taking Mr. Traylor's recommendation, leaving the 0.34 in there, and so that we can generate that revenue that we need to pay off our principal. Also at the bottom, we have the estimated revenue that is coming in with the 3 cents. For our local revenue and our tax collections, it's about 224,424. And then for our state revenue, it's 699,271. This is still contingent upon our local property values that we're supposed to be certified by the 25th. We haven't received them yet, but we did make contact with them, and so they are working on those to provide those to us as soon as possible.
Certified, I'm sorry, certified, we're waiting for who?
The certified from the appraisal district,
We're waiting for our certified property values.
Thank
And
you.
so that I can lock in that rate for us. So if you look at the next slide, this is the estimate of the revenues that are generated from our M&O and debt service rates. And when I talk about the certified values right now, the net taxable is 800,305,790. This is the amount that continues to change as the certified values and all the appeals are going through. And so when this decreases, then the state revenue increases. But if this goes up, then we have less state revenue. So right now, it's fluctuating, and so until we lock that number in, then we have a more exact estimate for or a more exact number for our tax collections and our levy. So we go into our next slide. This is the general operating revenue that's going to be proposed for our budget. The local revenues that we have here are based on currently our 95% tax collections and based on the estimated that we still have of the 800 million. So as soon as we lock in those property values, then we can have a more concrete number for our local revenues. For our foundation, this is the state monies that comes in. We are basing it on an ADA of 3689. This was a 2% decrease from our current ADA for the 23-24 year, and it's generating 40,947,000 with a decrease of 1.2 million. We also have our federal revenues. We had 6.8 million last year, and we are estimating 5.5 million for this year, with the decrease in revenue. Federal revenues of 1.3 million. For a total proposed budget of revenues of 53,943,188. Our general operating expenses. On these 6100s makes up most of our budget. Actually, it makes up about 71% of our budget. And so taking into account some of the, all of the salaries from the current year, 23-24. From there, we are incorporating the ESSER funded staff that we have to move back into our general fund of 1.5 million. We are taking into account some of the staff savings that we encountered with some of the resignations, retirements. And so we are also including the $1,000 stipend in there as well. And so we arrive at about 42,926,838. This is still at an estimate until we actually complete our salary negotiation file, and we have concrete numbers to provide you at next month's board meeting. For our 6200s, we have a slight reduction for that I took for a 10% reduction on prior year's budget, and then we incorporated we had our auditors change our the account code that we use for our leased copiers, and so we moved those out of the 6500 series into the 6200 series. So you're not seeing that 10% decrease there, you're just seeing the net effect of it. So for our 6300s, we have included a 10% reduction, plus we also have a cushion of 300,000 for our property insurance, property and casualty insurance that we don't know the amount that we're going to have as of yet. So I put a slight cushion in there just in case it ends up a little higher, and we are able to cover that. For our 6500s, we have the 1.3 million for our debt service on our maintenance tax note, and that is the payment for the year on the general fund side. And then our 6600 series, we have an increase there for the disaster pennies, plus we also have a 10% reduction as well. And so you're seeing that net effect of 650,000. We have total expenditures
proposed expenditures of 60,795,815. Our next slide, this is what our proposed budget looks like when we compare it against our fund balance. We have total revenues of the 53.9 million, total expenditures of 60,795,000, with an deficiency of 6.8 million.
I have a quick question, ma'am. 2024, 2025, I understand we have a 6.8 deficit.
Mhm.
What I'm really kind of worried here is, what about 25, 26? Hindsight is 2020, but for you, do you foresee a large deficit, just like we're gonna?
Yes.
Let's be honest,
yes.
you know. We
Since-
gotta have the,
since
we
our
gotta have the
pay-
stomach for it, so let us have it.
Since our payroll is 71% of the entire budget, I can work off the other 30%, but I will not make a dent into the actual reduction of expenditures. The actual reduction in expenditures has to come from our payroll, and simply because it makes up the majority of it. And so there has to be, even though we implemented a cut in our current budget, we're currently in a conservation of funds, and we have also asked the campuses to reduce their budgets by 10% for the new year as well. While we're making some progress, it's not going to be enough to bring down the deficit unless we actually make some very, very critical choices in decreasing our payroll.
Okay, Ms. Venetia, I would like for you, ma'am, if it's possible, go back 5 years, and let's look at the mathematics between the staff and the student enrollment. There has to be a correlation there. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to live within our means. We're not the federal government. You know, we're not the wealthiest school district in the state of Texas. You know, we gotta have those conversations, and if you don't have the stomach to have those conversations, then I don't think, I can only speak for myself, then I don't have no business being on the board, but you gotta have the stomach for this. I mean, this is what leadership's all about. This is my humble opinion about it, so, Ms. Venetia, if you can give us that report, so we can have those tough conversations. You know, I've gone through this. I mean, as a board member. And sometimes you gotta have that stomach to tell the people the truth. And ma'am, thank you so much for having the courage. And Ms. Venecia, I really appreciate your staff. I mean, God bless you, you know, because you guys have to do so much work with very minimum amount of resources. But like I said before, we have to live within our means. So I greatly appreciate it, ma'am. I'm sorry to burden you with this
That's okay.
task, but it's a conversation that we have to have with the staff and the community. Because I don't want to go back to the dark ages, you know? No. So, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, action agenda, thank you, Mrs. Garza, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
A, Business Office, 1, presentation of delinquent tax attorney services, RFP number 060424-403, Mrs. Garza.
I believe we have some presentations. One is from for the delinquent tax attorney, and the other one is for our security guard services. So I believe we will have 10 minutes, or I'm sorry, how many minutes?
Yes.
10 minutes, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
You want to break first?
Our very first ones will be Lineberger, and I believe they're here.
Whenever you're ready.
All right.
Thank you, Superintendent Venencia, Board President Mark Garcia, and esteemed members of Mercedes ISD School Board. My name is Kelly Rivera Salazar, and it's my pleasure to present this evening on behalf of Linebarger, Goggin, Blair, and Sampson. I am joined this evening by attorney Jimmy Gonzalez, Robert Garza, and on the clicker, Roger Gonzalez. It is our esteemed pleasure to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to present. One thing I know for certain is the Mercedes ISD School Board strives to be the very best for academics, athletics, musical endeavors for its students, and to be the best caretaker for this district's children. And you strive to continue to have the best delinquent tax collections in this district, and that's what Linebarger continues to offer you. And let me explain how we do that. With Linebarger, you have the benefit of an Austin-based law firm with a national presence. We are located in 11 states. We have over 2,600 clients nationwide. Within Texas, we represent over 1,900 delinquent tax clients, and we service 448 school districts. Within the beautiful Rio Grande Valley, we have two main offices, one in Edinburgh, one in Brownsville, with 6 payment locations spread throughout Star, Hidalgo, Willacy, Cameron, and Zapata for the convenience of your taxpayers. We know not everyone lives and works in Mercedes, and it needs to be convenient for your taxpayers to pay their obligations. You already have this benefit, and we hope you continue to have that benefit with Linebarger. You also get excellent experience. With our team, we have 7 local attorneys in Edinburgh and in Brownsville. With those 7 attorneys, you have over 104 years of collection experience. With the 4 attorneys located in the Edinburgh office, you have over 90 years of just litigation experience. That's unmatched. With our staff, we have 70 local, full-time, bilingual collection professionals, and their combined collection experience is nearly 1,000 years combined. Now, this is critical because with our experience, our collection staff is able to negotiate, discuss, and work on complex collection matters without necessarily always having to resort to the heavy hammer of litigation, which is very stressful on your taxpayers and adds additional costs. Not only do you have the benefit of national and local and statewide experience, you also have superior collection results. Now, when I talk about superior collection results and any numbers you see, you're going to see them displayed on a July through June collection percentage because your RFQ requested all the collection numbers presented on that basis. So for clarity and consistency, that's the way you'll see it presented tonight because they know that is the best way to display the work product that the collection firms do. You'll also see it displayed on a base, penalty, and interest basis with adjusted levy because, again, that's what the RFQ called for, and that's how we'll present it to you as well. Now, it's important when you see any numbers presented to pay close attention to the months in which they're presented because that'll impact the appearance of the collections, and also what numbers are you seeing? Are you seeing the full years, or are you looking at 1 year only? Because, again, that impacts collections. So this is what the RFQ asked for, and that's what you'll see presented tonight. So let's see how Mercedes ISD has been doing this past year. 38% collections this past year. In a vacuum, it's hard to identify is that good or that's bad. Let's take it back in time. Let's look at the prior 2 years. In gray, you'll see the 2021 collection year. That year was collected by the other firm. You see this year's is improved upon that. That middle year, 21-22, both firms were collecting, and there was an anomaly payment that year of nearly $300,000, which I can discuss if y'all have any questions on that. So that impacted the collections. But on our collection work compared to the other firm, you see the difference is significant. But let's take it one more step. Let's compare Mercedes ISD to the city of Mercedes, which is important. City of Mercedes is collected by another firm, but the City of Mercedes and Mercedes ISD, basically the same taxpayers. They're paying one and they're paying the other in most circumstances, right? But you see the collection results are significant. Collections for Mercedes ISD is 5 points ahead of the City of Mercedes looking at last year. Let's also look at the City of Weslaco, your neighboring city, also collected by the other firm. They're at a 35% collection rate compared to the others, correct? But what I want you to look at closely on this is what's labeled the adjusted levy. I know what this is because I do this every day, but it's probably a foreign concept to someone who doesn't do this, basically 7 days a week, right? The adjusted levy is the bucket of accounts and money from which we can collect, the delinquent accounts. So in Mercedes ISD, for the 22-23 year, your adjusted levy was close to $1.5 million, and that includes all accounts. Those accounts that might be in bankruptcy, those accounts that might have a deferral or an exemption over 65, a veteran, a homestead. That's all the money that you have, right, in that last year. So the City of Weslaco's adjusted levy is very close to the school district for that year, and the collection percentages are down. Let's look at another example. Weslaco ISD, which is your neighboring district, and this is the only district, school district that is collected by the other firm, and the collection percentage look about similar. They're slightly ahead, but remember again that adjusted levy. It's about 2.5 times the size of Mercedes ISD's levy, right? So I think it's important that you look at a school district or another account with a similar bucket of money to collect from. We have Donna ISD, which is collected by our firm, which is nearly 13 points ahead of a similar adjusted levy, a similar bucket. But let's look at a few more examples. These are other examples of districts and taxing bodies collected by our firm. No matter where you look in the county, we demonstrate superior collection results. We also are the most trusted by schools, cities, counties. 2/3 of our clients have been with us over 10 years. This great district has partnered with our firm for 24 of the last 25 years based upon the superior collection results. Not only that, let's look at the other firm and the list of clients in which they have represented over time. It's a full list of clients that have tried, experimented with another firm over time. This is their current list of clients. As mentioned before, Wesco is their only current district client. Not only are we trusted by our clients, we're also trusted by the communities in which we serve. We are grateful for the opportunity to assist the community and participate and experience what makes Mercedes beautiful. From quarterback clubs to Tiger Band boosters and other activities, we're proud to participate in the activities and the events that are important to you and this community. So why choose Linebarger? Again, we're a national firm with statewide and tremendous local experience here in the Rio Grande Valley. You have the experience of 7 local attorneys, 4 right down the street in Edinburgh, with 90 years combined litigation experience, and a collection staff with nearly 1,000 years of combined collection experience. We have superior collection results, and we're trusted by our clients and the communities in which we serve. So you may hear this evening that a lot of things matter, but what I believe we both know what truly matters is that this district wants the very, very best for its students and its teachers and its community, and Linebarger offers just that, the best service for you. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you.
So I have allocated about 3 minutes per board member to ask any questions they may have of the firms that are gonna be presenting today. I will start on my left. Mr. Howell, do you have any questions?
No, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Martinez? None? Mrs. Delgado?
I'm good, I'm good, thank you.
Mr. Hernandez?
Just a couple of points. I just, well, first of all, thank you for taking your time to come and present, ma'am. Really appreciate it. I just appreciated that you put up the numbers, because sometimes the numbers are skewed a lot, but it's straightforward, and it's, I've been on the record that said, hey, I'm gonna look out at the performance.
Yes, sir.
And the performance is there, but I'm still gonna listen to the competitor, and it looks very impressive that your firm actually performed above the other firm. But again, I still have to hear them out, so
Thank
just
you.
to be fair.
Mr. Rodriguez, you have any questions, sir?
So you mentioned an anomaly a little while ago. Could you elaborate?
Yes, so there is a large taxpayer in your district.
Was that the H&H property?
I am not, but that's a great memory that you have, Mr. Howell, about H&H being and having worked on that case for a very long time, and eventually was a payoff and a tax sale. But this is different. It is a taxpayer that usually pays on time. They were involved in a protest, and they made a payment not on time, and so that counted towards a current delinquent amount. So that's why when we converted, as requested, a July through June, you see a skewed amount for that. You don't see that same skewed amount on a September through August basis.
That was for 21, 22.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the
That was that
opportunity.
$300,000 anomaly you're talking about?
Yes, sir.
I do have a quick question, ma'am. We, in our packet, received our May schedules for delinquent tax collections. We did see there was a downward tick of about 2.15% in collections from last year, from May last year to May this year. Is there any explanation as to why this may be trending down as opposed to up?
Well, I don't like to use the term trending down because I don't think I've seen that yet, right? But, so your fiscal year is September through August. So if you use a football analogy, which I think I can articulate this effectively, we're at the top of the fourth quarter. So the fiscal year is not concluded yet. I actually have June numbers. Those have already come in, and that trend down, I hate to repeat that word, but as you say, President Garcia, has been reduced. I think there was a $22,000 deficit compared to May of last year, and in June, it's down to like a $9,000 deficit, and that's within 30 days. So we feel very confident that moving forward to the close of the fiscal year in August, that we will meet or exceed the numbers from last year. And not only that, but there's a couple other factors to consider, and we have proactively scheduled a meeting with the Hidalgo County Tax Office on another issue that affects how those numbers appear on the reports. I don't know how familiar y'all are with the process of protesting property values. So when someone protests a property value, you need to pay your property taxes on time, right? Or you have to pay the undisputed amount. You have to pay taxes up front, right? If you are successful in your appeal and your property value is reduced and thereby your tax liability reduced, and you've paid in excess of that tax liability, you may be entitled to a refund, right? And most times that refund amount will get triggered and taken from our delinquent tax money, the money that you would otherwise receive. But the refund money needs to come from somewhere, and that's the pot that it comes from, right? That refund is not easily reflected on those county reports that you see. It's in another report. It's there, right? It's not hidden, but it deserves explanation. And it deserves explanation. Jimmy, do you have those numbers? hate to go off on a tangent, but it's very interesting to me, and it's a numbers thing, and especially when y'all encounter deficits, it's important that you know where some of this money goes that you would otherwise receive. And it's a no fault of us not collecting it. We did our work, but when people are entitled to refunds, the money has to come from somewhere, right? And it's significant because in the last fiscal year, oh, let me just start a couple years past, right? In 2 prior years, this district allocated over $18,000 in refunds. The following year, $33,000. Last year's refund amounts, over $71,000. So, could mean a couple things. Your taxpayers are getting more informed, and they're learning more about their access to property value information and stuff. But that's money that you would have otherwise received as a district, but the taxpayer's entitled to it if their property value was too high, and that's what the process lent itself to be. So there's a whole, we should do a workshop on it, really. So it's very interesting.
So
Did I
that-
answer that question?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
yes. So that's attributed to the reimbursements that people are allowed to get, basically is what we're.
So, for the current year, we're not done yet. There have been some refunds, both last year and this year, but we're on par, I think, to meet where we were last year. I feel very confident in that.
Okay, and that number is trending up, is that?
No, actually, if I look and then I include the amount of money that we collected but that was refunded out, we've been pretty consistent with our collections.
Okay.
You know, and I think that the finance department appreciates a firm that they can rely on for consistent collections, for budget purposes. And you'll find that with our firm.
Well, they took my other question about the anomalies, so I think I'm done. Were there any final questions before we allow them to? Nope. No? All righty, well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very
Mr.
much
Mendoza.
for the opportunity.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate y'all being here.
The next presenter is Purdue Brandon. Fielder and Collins, I'll be getting them in a few minutes, a couple of minutes.
While you get them, can we take maybe a 5-minute recess on the board? Are we good to do that, sir? Yeah, so we'll recess and at 8:15 we'll come back.